We're ready if, okay, so she's going to speak to us by way of Teresa Thibodeau's telephone, and hopefully, okay, however.
Okay, hold on. Senator, I will try to see if this can Okay, so I have you on speaker. So everyone, sorry, Senator Geist, they are down. A bunch of people are upset about the committee assignments, which means Republicans did a good job. So there are some people who are whining and crying about it, so she has to stay there for the vote. So without further ado, I'm happy to introduce my good friend, Senator Suzanne Geist, on speakerphone.
Thank you. And you let me know if I need to speak louder or if I'm okay. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, everyone can hear you.
Okay, good. Well, I was telling Teresa and just apologizing that I have to be here via telephone, but it is our important first show of strength here on the floor. And as she said, it is truly an indication that the Republicans did exactly what we were elected to do. Mm-hmm. And we did a good job of setting up our committees. And so we are having a little bit of discussion on the floor, and they do need to be sure that they have 33 votes for anything. And I believe the last vote that was taken, there were only 32, although it was a majority, so we still won that vote. So it is important that I be here today and not be there with you face to face. But anyway, I do so much appreciate you attending. And I'll tell you for the first few minutes just a little bit about my campaign. And then I'll give you just brief highlights on the legislature. And then I'll open it up for questions. And hopefully this will be at least some of what you anticipated today. So to start out with, let me tell you about my campaign. I have been a resident of Lincoln since the early 80s. I came to Nebraska to lose my accent. And I was a broadcast journalism major and graduated in broadcast journalism with that as my major and speech and English and sociology as my minors. And I came up here expecting to move on in that field and met this wonderful guy named Mark and ended up marrying him. And we have been married now for 38 years. We have 3 grown children who are all married, who all live in Lincoln. And between the 3 of them, we have 9 grandchildren. And my husband's family have been residents of Lincoln for nearly a century. So we are committed to this city. We're committed to the things that work well in the city. And also, not only am I committed to the city, we stay here because we love it. And through the last several years, I've noticed things in the city changing and in a way that I found alarming. And it's because of the changes that I see in the city and the concern that I have about those changes and the love that myself and my family have for the city that I decided to run for mayor. There's some things that are on my highest concern list. And if any of you are citizens of Lincoln or you regularly get the news from Lincoln, this is not going to come as a surprise to you. But public safety has really come to the top of the list. It's one of the reasons that kind of pushed me over the edge to decide to run this race. And right now, public safety is one of the things that when I tell people I'm running for mayor, they never fail to mention. It has alarmingly, for instance, murders year over year, right now, I would say in December, we're up 100% in Lincoln. Crime is really becoming an issue in Lincoln, where since I've lived there for a long time, we're having some issues with crime that we have not had before. I say that not to lay the responsibility of the crime spikes that we're seeing in Lincoln at the feet of Lincoln Police Department. What I lay the responsibility of this problem is because we're down almost 100 police officers from being fully staffed in our city. And the ability of being down that many officers to cover the entire city adequately is just not possible. I do want to let you know that you'll be hearing in the next, at maximum in the next week, because they've already told me, is that I will be receiving the endorsement from the Lincoln Police Union, and because they too are concerned about the leadership of the city and what the direction that's going, that leadership is going. The leadership has not been fully responsive to the needs of the police department, and I believe not shown a full commitment to having their back. That's one huge difference that I will present in my administration to the city. I will stand shoulder to shoulder, good times and bad, with our Lincoln Police Department, with LFR, with all of our first responders. Public safety, as an elected official, is my number one commitment. Anything else that happens in the city happens under the safety and protection of our city. And so that's a number one commitment that I'm making to the citizens of Lincoln. Number two is giving full attention to the needs of our roads. If any of you have driven in Lincoln lately, you know this to be a fact. Our arterial streets are deteriorating and need attention immediately. I'm hoping to use some of the proceeds from casino, the proceeds that we get from the city from the casinos, to put that directly on top of our current roads budget. Currently, we spend about $40 to $45 million a year on roads. We do have some projects going on, but it's evident to me that that's not enough. I do not intend to raise taxes. We have enough taxes in Lincoln going directly to roads. As long as we supplement with casino funds, I think we can get this done in a better way without raising taxes of the citizens of Lincoln. And then finally, another thing that I hear almost to a person is how difficult it is to do business in the city of Lincoln. I find that to be frustrating. Lincoln being the capital city, we should be the place that people can do business the easiest. But we've, over a long period of time, being a heavily bureaucratic city, we've made permitting, we've made partnering with the city very difficult. And so one of the major priorities that I will put forward as the mayor will be to be a better partner with developers, with business owners, to streamline our permitting processes and to quit doing redundant processes with permitting, with oversight, with inspection. We have many, many, many hoops that we've put into our processes that make doing business very difficult. So that's the third thing that my administration will be committed to streamlining over time. I also always throw this out. One of the things I've learned about being in the legislature is change, especially when it comes to bureaucracy and its processes, doesn't come overnight. However, I am committed to starting day one on changing some of the processes that businesses have to go through. And I ask the citizens to be patient because that does take it is going to be a priority of my administration. So, so you know what to expect. The election, the primary is April 4th of this year, and then the general election is May 2nd. So if you are interested in getting involved or donating to my campaign, Suzanne Geist for Mayor.com, and my last name is spelled Geist, and 4 is FOR, not the number. So Suzanne Geist for Mayor.com, and you can get all the information that you need on that website. If you want to volunteer for anything, there is a volunteer form. And if you leave your email on that website, we will be emailing and keeping you updated on call nights, on sign placements. If anyone wants to help with that, that's the way to get involved. So I have a great team in place. I'm excited about where we're going. Our fundraising is right on target. And of course, always looking for more. But I am just committed to not only winning this race, but working as hard as possible and involving as many people as I can so that we can really show the citizens of Lincoln a Republican can win this race and a Republican can change the way the city is going. So that is my commitment to you and commitment to the citizens of Lincoln. And first, I would be happy to take a few questions about my campaign if you have questions about that. And then I'll take 3 or 4, and then I'll give you a brief synopsis of where we are legislatively so I don't confuse the two. So does anyone have any questions specifically for me about my campaign?
All right, make it a question and not a speech.
And I would say if you could stand up and really project your voice. I know we can hear her well, but it may be harder for her to hear us.
Kathy.
Hi, Suzanne. Please tell us your plan for how you're going to deal with a Republican opponent in the primary.
Did you hear the question, Senator?
I did hear the question.
And that was Kathy Okabar with voter information.
Oh, was it for my opponent? How I'm going to deal with my opponent in the race?
Your plan while having a Republican opponent.
Okay. My plan, actually, I know my Republican opponent well. We're actually friends. We have very similar outlooks. So my plan is to run against the current mayor, period. I have no ill will or anything negative to say about my opponent. I would just differentiate myself in the sense of having significant legislative experience and political experience. And I think that's a huge issue in this race. However, we are not spending a cent of campaign donations running against my opponent who is a Republican. We are spending all of our resources and time and focus running against the current mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Craig Needbalski.
Craig Nadbalski, I'm with nobody but myself. If you're elected mayor, since you would be one of 51 semi-unique mayors, do you anticipate any problems governing the city with the state legislature being inside your boundaries?
I don't think that being a mayor is ever an easy thing. I do look forward to the opportunity of putting people around me who are like-minded. I don't think it's wise for me to expect to come in and fire everyone day one. That is not an intention I have. There are a number of people I would place around me who are like-minded, who have the same vision that I have. And my vision for the city is really quite bipartisan, I would say, because it's about city business. And the 3 things that I highlighted, public safety, roads, business, those are things that whether you're a Republican or Democrat, we agree on. Those things need to be strong. Now, how we may get there is where the difference might be. But currently, I would say the leadership of the city has their eye off the ball of those three things. So my duty as a mayor would be to cast the vision of where I would like to go as a city, and then to put people around me who agree with that vision. So I would be interviewing those who are currently in their positions to see if they can jump on board with that vision. I have no illusions that this job is for the faint of heart, since there has not been a Republican mayor for over 25 years in the city of Lincoln. But I think it's possible. I believe I'm the right leader to do that, and I believe we can get it done.
Thank you.
Marty B. Lick.
Senator, my question for you is, you mentioned earlier that you wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with law enforcement down on Lincoln. So can I assume that you would handle the situation in Lincoln in 2020 differently, the situation where they rioted or demonstrated, whichever word you would like to use? Some people were critical of that in Lincoln. How would you handle that differently?
Yes, I've handled that differently. I've heard from law enforcement here and how they felt about how that was handled. And I would not step outside of a command that I gave. I would not break my own curfew. I would also make sure that law enforcement has every tool at their disposal to make sure that businesses are protected, that citizens are protected, and that they themselves are protected. That's what law enforcement does for us, and when we leave them exposed, I believe that nurtures doubt from them about how, if we, I mean an administration, would stand with them in other times. So yes, I would have handled that. If they asked for the National Guard to come in, I would have that available to them. I would give them whatever tool necessary to protect business and the public and themselves.
Other questions? Stephen.
Hey, Senator, this is Stephen Bader. Hope that you're enjoying your time with Christy. Just wanted to say I went to the mayor's website just to see what she's focusing on, and the two big things that are front and center are DEI and climate change. How would you respond to the mayor's top two priorities?
What is DEI?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you. And that's such a good question. I will be asked that a lot. And I would say I believe those things are important. I don't believe they are the front burner issues of our city. Lincoln has been known for many, many years as being a very open and welcoming community. I, in my personal life, in my public life, blend with people of many different backgrounds, choices, and ideals. And to me, that it's important to accept people as they are, where they are. But I believe that Lincoln is a city that does that is an example to many other places, whether in our state or in our country, of a place that's open and welcoming. I also think climate is an important issue. I think it's important that we're good stewards of our community, of our resources. I would draw the line on climate of when we prefer things that are inanimate or smaller life than human life. To me, human life is the number one highest order of living things. And when we prefer to our expense and to our public detriment things that are not human over human, I think that's when we go too far. I would also question, I know that the mayor's intent is to set an example in the city of being front and center on climate change. But if that's the only city that is front and center, we have a lot of other competing cities around Lincoln who may not be following the same cues. And so I would wonder at how effective is that at being a number one front and center issue. So for me, again, public safety, roads, business, good jobs, those are the things that I think we can all agree on. And rather than being a mayor who brings an agenda and then ends up dividing the city, my goal would be whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, we can agree that public safety, roads, and good business and jobs, we all agree on. I would look to be uniting our citizens around that and not around my own personal agenda.
Good job. Thank you.
Yeah, why don't I go ahead and do briefly a legislative update? I'm afraid they're going to do a call of the House, and I'm going to have to jump off. But I'll tell you right now, as Teresa said earlier, we're in the middle of a filibuster, our first one, which doesn't really spell peace and harmony for the remaining of the session. But we do have some big things to tackle. We have a huge rainy day fund. We have a huge amount of money that we have in excess of our budget. So this is a great opportunity for us as elected officials to deliver additional tax revenue back to the taxpayers. Our current governor has talked about transformational tax reform, and I know we're all interested to hear what that's going to look like. So keep your ears to the legislature and to the governor's office on what that's going to look like. Personally, on a couple of the fronts where I'm going to be really involved, I am currently now the chair of Transportation and Telecommunications. So we will be talking a lot about broadband and deploying broadband throughout the state, especially to those unserved and underserved areas of the state, which is primarily rural, though not exclusively rural. So between now and certainly this time next year, the state is going to be receiving hundreds of millions of dollars from the federal government to put towards broadband deployment. So the Transportation and Telecommunication Committee is going to be integral in how we're going to deploy that, what the structure is going to be, and the best way to do that. So that's another big issue that we're going to tackle. And then we'll be talking about expanding and thinking outside the box, I believe, more in the Department of Transportation and how we fund roads, what our priorities are going to be. And we have a new Director of Transportation who I have not yet met in this capacity. And so she comes on board on the 23rd of this month. And so we'll be following a new leader for the Department of Transportation as well. So I expect some changes that will come from her leadership. And then I'm also serving on the Judiciary Committee, and you'll be hearing quite a lot this year about building a new prison, which I am 100% in support of. Not because I want to lock people up and throw away the key, but we have to have a humane place for our inmates to live and for our guards and administration to work. And we cannot supply that at our current prison. And we also need space for programming, for classes, for job training, for all of those things, so that we can help our inmates come out actually better than when they came in. And I am committed to that priority. I am working closely with some juvenile justice issues and some correctional issues. Senator McKinney and Senator Wayne and I are working on a package of some things that we can all agree on for criminal justice reform. And I'll be happy to come back at another time once we have that all hammered out and let you know what that is. But those are some of the things that I will be working on. And I have one sort of outside the box thing I'm carrying, outside for me, but not really for this group. I'm also bringing a bill that will allow our 529 savings plans for college applied to K through 12 tuition for private schools. So I am a grandparent of 9 grandchildren, and we have a 529 plan for our grandchildren, and we have 3 of those who are now going to private school, and we cannot help them with their tuition because the government tells us we can't save our money and put it towards K through 12 private schools. And so that got a little burr under my saddle. So I am bringing this so that all of us have a choice of how we spend the money that we save. So anyway, that is a brief synopsis, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have in addition to those things about the legislative session.
Kathy?
Kathy Hokebar with the Voter Information Project.
Okay,
The
I
same
get
question I asked when you were here before about the life issue and about voter ID.
So life issue and voter ID.
There will be a pro-life bill. I have to be 100% honest. We are having our first meeting about that bill. Senator Albright will be bringing that legislation. I have not read it. It has not been dropped yet. So I'm not 100% sure what the details of that bill are. I know I will be supporting it. That's also, I'm sure that people in my mayor campaign are going to talk about how I hate women and all of that. But that is of course not true. But there will be a good pro-life legislation bill that will be dropped out of the meeting. Well, it's going to be this week, and probably Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So you will be hearing about those details, but they hold that really close until they drop the bill. And so that's not my legislation, but it will be coming. And then voter ID is coming as well, and they're treating that bill exactly the same way. I believe Senator Slama is bringing that legislation, and I don't have the details, and I'm very interested in how this is going to look. That's going to be, as both of these will be a huge battle on the floor. I'm sure they will be filibustered. The left is going to try to water down that voter ID bill as much as possible, and the rest of us are committed to making sure that bill is what the public feels like they actually voted for, which means showing an ID when you vote. So I feel very strongly about that, and so Keith, I'm sorry I can't give you details on it because they haven't been released yet, but those will be coming, and there will be a huge push by those on the right to make sure those are positive votes this year.
Thank you. Okay, and then Rob?
How are you handling early and voting by mail voting?
Oh, he was wondering if you knew how they were going to handle the early and voting by mail.
Yeah, I can answer that. My campaign is working very hard already. We are discovering we have to fight the battle on the battlefield it's being played on. In Lincoln, typically there are people to vote early. Now, it's irrelevant of whether we agree with that or not, we have to do better on our early balloting. So we are currently and have been out canvassing and getting people to sign up early to vote, and especially if they typically vote in the regular elections but not in the off-year elections. We're targeting those voters specifically. My campaign is also going into some, Lincoln is a refugee city, and so we have about 30,000 refugees in Lincoln, some of whom have already become citizens. We're targeting those because typically those populations in Lincoln live our values. We're translating my palm card into different languages, and then I'm going into those people groups and meeting them in their community and talking to them about my race. So we're trying to do some out-of-the-box things to get an additional voting base that the left doesn't expect us to get and doesn't think that we target. So we've been working since November to do that.
You have time for one more, or is it time to quit?
Yeah, I'll take one more question. Sure.
John.
Good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon.
Have you established your priority bills yet for the session?
I have not. It kind of depends on how much agreement I get on some of my criminal justice bills. I have some that were left over from last year that we did get some agreement on, which took quite a bit of arm twisting and manipulating. So my criminal justice bills are pretty important to me. However, if it seems that we have a chair that's a little more willing to work with me on my priorities and corrections and criminal justice than in the past, and if that's the case, it could be that my 529 plan ends up being my priority, but I'm actually waiting just to see how much agreement I can get on some of the major things that I think we need to move forward on with law enforcement and corrections. If I get agreement there, then I can go kind of outside the box and do a different priority bill, but most likely it will be within that arena.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. We appreciate it, and best wishes.
Absolutely. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Teresa.
Okay, that worked actually quite well. I was pleased with that. We usually do introductions. I'm not going to do so many introductions today. There's 3 people I'm going to ask to speak. And I'll give Judy, I'll ask first, and then, Arash. And then we have an out-of-work former elected official. We're going to ask him to speak a little bit. So, Judy Obagudo, did I say it right? All right. Judy has she has a radio show, talk show, and tell us just about it for a minute, and about yourself.
Up here, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, John.
Sure, thank you.
Morning, Ricky. Great to see you. So, as John said, my name is Judith Obodugo. I'm originally from Nigeria. So, when I came to the U.S., I was a college student. So, it was hard for me to get into the community. So, I always volunteer as a student whenever we have events going on at school at UNO. It was hard for me to look up, to have a female mentor that I can look up to. So I always see like female businesses and politicians, different careers, but it was hard to connect, to speak to them and know how they came about their career. So that has always been my inspiration. So that was what inspired me to start my talk show. I do it at the KPAO, the community television. So the idea was to bring in different professions, female especially, so we can be able to inspire younger girls. So usually we have a high rate of high school dropouts, especially when it comes to girls, and teen pregnancy. So just having the females to come and talk about their career and having the platform to inspire the younger girls, so that way they can have someone they can look up to. They don't have to search to to reach out to someone, I can connect them to, maybe if they have, like now, as the mayor, they're looking for volunteers. It's easier to reach out for younger girls who are inspired to also go into politics. So the idea was to bring them to my show and interview them, different profession. It doesn't have to be politics. Just to talk about their inspiration, what motivates them, what keeps them going, and being a role model to those females. So that's the idea for the talk show. So if you know of anyone that I can be able to reach out to, I know I've already talked to Teresa and Nancy. So you can send me an email. I would love to sit down and chat, and I'll bring you to my talk show so you can help and promote the talk show and other young females that are growing up as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Judy. And next, I'm going to introduce a new friend, Arash Badi. And Arash is a doctor, and he's kind of a miracle guy. He's from Iran. He's here. I'm not exactly the immigration status, but you might fill us in on that. Arash and your wife, Farah. You want to come up, or do you want to? Yeah. Give us about 2 minutes of some of the things you're working on and some of the medical things, please.
Thank you. Thanks for giving us this opportunity. Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Arash. I'm Assistant Research Director of the Rehabilitation and Engineering Center at the hospital, Medana Rehabilitation Hospital. I do design assistive devices and develop them for patients with disabilities. And we have a wide range of patients like trauma, like brain injury, spine cord injury, brain stroke, or amputees. So I help them to have a better life. I address their needs to have a better life. I'm happy to make their life better or making them happier. So my bachelor, master, and the first PhD, I have done them in my country, Iran, and to have a better life and to leave the bad government, we moved here to have a better life and helping people. So I started the second PhD here, which is in biomechanics, and then I started working at the hospital, Medana Hospital. Yeah.
Thank you. And help me if I get this right. You have invented or improved artificial limbs and so forth.
Yes, I designed artificial limbs or joints or like hand, elbow, knee, ankle, or I use like the EEG signals to move the actuators or the bodies of people like amputees, or training them like the Parkinson's disease or heart stroke or brain injury, to train them or help them.
And you are from Iran, or you've been here 15 years, give or take?
Actually, we moved here since 2016. We applied for like green card, and based on like a category which is like Nobel Prize, NIW, National Interest Waiver. So the government approved that because they think that we are good for this country, and just the rest is like the paperwork that we are waiting for, just the hard copy of the green card.
And for which card? The green card?
The green card.
The green card. Okay. So if you know any elected officials or potential elected officials, put in a good word for the bodies. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm just